Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. We have an XRP quick update video for you guys today. We're looking quickly at a kind of integration really with the regards to standard Chartered Zodia platform for crypto custody. And this is very much linking towards the Metaco platform's custodial structures as well that are powered by the Ripple company. This is quite an interesting move really, because Standard Chartered, of course, absolutely huge in the financial industry, and have a very large holding of assets in general in their portfolio. So it's definitely something of interest to see that huge momentous kind of number coming across with the integration of Ripple services moving forward. We'll go into a bit more detail about that. Before we do, don't forget to check out the other channel videos, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Welcome to the channel if you are new, of course, welcome back for those that have been with us for some time. So let's go into this quickly. I don't spend too much time on this video because it's a lot to get through this week, but this is very much around the news here. So Zodia Custody, a cryptocurrency storage provider backed by Standard Chartered, is joining Ripple-owned custody specialist Metaco's network. So if you remember, or if you're familiar with Ripple over the many years, many of you will know about Metaco. If you don't, you can check out our previous video on that introduction to that platform within the Ripple ecosystem. But what you're going to see, I think, over these next few years, and we've made it no secret on this channel that we have this kind of like partial prediction really, that more and more banks or banking institutions worldwide will start offering more custodial services relating to crypto, whether that's in an exchange format or a brokerage system or just custody in general. I think you're going to see a huge influx of this moving forwards, and not just the kind of like individual upcoming startup companies. You will see the institutional level companies that have been around for decades, if not sometimes longer, coming into this space more and more as they have a better understanding, as regulation really kicks in. And I think this is one of those clear, obvious ones that's come out in these last few days in terms of the news about Zodia Custody joining with Metaco. So this was quite interesting at the bottom. So it's currently registered within the UK, Ireland, Luxembourg, and recently in Singapore as well. And there's a bit of information here about Abu Dhabi. We'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. But the fact of the matter is the UK, of course, over these last few months has very much structured itself as a leading country regarding to cryptocurrency and blockchain technology. And we've seen as well that regulatory law has been passed for the use of digital currencies and stablecoins in the UK. And we know that Luxembourg is very heavily orientated around regulation and standardization as well. We followed the likes of the LCX platform, for example, the powerful exchange over there from Luxembourg, very much underlined with the regulation that's currently coming out there too. And Abu Dhabi and other regions around that particular area, particularly as well, of course, United Arab Emirates in general, and Dubai as well, of course, have been really, really heavily focused on the crypto space over the many years, and have come to some formal conclusions and frameworks around their regulations and usage of crypto for the general public in those regions as well. So it's no surprise that they are moving towards those areas in more detail. This particular article coming back from September was very much around the approval in principle for crypto broker-dealer Zodia markets to be operating in the Abu Dhabi region, which is absolutely phenomenal. So under this ADGM, something that we picked up on in a video a few days ago, where we were discussing IOTA being picked as the kind of like framework blockchain, for a better word, for the use in Dubai particularly. But of course, we see here under the ADGM initiative, kicked off a $2 billion initiative to support Web3 projects. So it's really, I wouldn't say upcoming because I think it's already there, but it's certainly progressing in those areas. So when we loop this back round to XRP and Ripple, this is quite a substantial move in my opinion in terms of an integration. So Zodia, which is this platform here, so crypto custody without compromise, they say here. So institution first digital asset custodian, and of course here as well with the use of SBI, which we've again covered quite recently with a number of projects it's starting to really connect the dots now, guys. And just a bit of detail around Zodia, a bit more detail here. Zodia custody, right? So London headquartered, as of October 2023, this year, had over $825 billion worth of total assets under the firm. So that was the third quarter financial report. So very much gearing towards that 1 trillion almost, which is absolutely phenomenal amounts. So you can really start to paint a picture of the kind of levels, certainly from a financial perspective, of the holdings of these kind of customers or companies rather. And I think this really, again, just pushes towards that narrative that over these coming years, we will see more and more of this kind of thing, and particularly the integration aspects as well. Of course, Ripple being an expert in the blockchain crypto sphere for many years now, could argue maybe 10 years in fruition. And I think this is where some of the existing financial institutions out there need or will lean on these kind of projects and companies. And I think one of the recent events that I was at in the trade finance sector, it was quite apparent that a lot of these institutional levels were still trying to educate themselves about this space a lot more, how they can operate with the real world assets, the tokenization, the use of crypto assets, how this will work on a wholesale institutional level as well as general public retail investors as well, and the usage of that in both of those sectors also. So I think this is definitely something to keep an eye on as time goes by. But yes, looping this back round, of course, this is using the Metaco network. So again, an institutional standard for digital asset services. And we did a video, I think a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, around a prediction that we felt by 2025 that our general banks, the banks that we know well, the likes of Barclays, HSBC, etc., will start offering custodial services, wallet services, crypto services in general, to us as the general public. I truly believe that. I think the stepping stone approach of this would always be that institutional wholesales looked after first, even if it was from a trial perspective, of course. But the retail aspect of it is absolutely a huge market. And I think as well, we've got to kind of tie in with the fact that we are potentially entering a new bull run in the 2024-2025 year period. And I believe by 2025, with all of these things fully integrated, along with the RTGS system launching, the ISO 20022 compliance in full launch capacity as well, it's going to bring in a huge adoptive era. And what I mean by this is we've seen snippets of it, of course, like the likes of PayPal coming into fruition with crypto services, and you're talking about hundreds of millions of people worldwide already using that service. So we've already got quick access, we've already got crypto exchanges, but we know, and we have seen in depth the last 12 to 18 months of how some exchanges have maybe let us down or have come across some form of scrutiny by specific governments or certainly organizations within governments. More recently, of course, Binance. And it kind of showcased that the likes of Coinbase, for example, where they've had a bit of a shuffle in their boardroom, some people from the US government or the legislative teams are now integrated with the Coinbase team. So you can start building that pattern. And it's no different to the banking industry, where we'll see more and more of these kind of integrations, more and more of these kind of influx of people, perhaps with authoritative power or some certain influence being added into the existing blockchain crypto projects and technology platforms. So it really does bring that equation into 2025, where we had that prediction that many banks will be offering this. So we are now ticking the boxes quite significantly with the introduction of institutional levels working with blockchain crypto projects like Ripple, for example, to coordinate this. And of course, the XRP token comes into fruition of powering these platforms, or most of them in general, and of course, most of the banks worldwide moving forward also. And especially on that cross-border mechanism, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. So quite an interesting and exciting move for both parties, and really, as I said, emphasizes what we've been talking about on the channel for some time. I'd really be interested to know your thoughts and opinions on this. Please do leave them in the comments below, because I think this is going to be a really significant next couple of years for the space and for the banking world as well, as it transitions to the usage and interoperability of blockchain and crypto services. So a lot of money being thrown about here and being integrated also. So that takes us nicely quickly to the XRP price point on the chart. Currently floating around 61 cents as of recording. If we just zoom in a bit more detail here, we can see they're still playing around with this fib level of around the 60-cent mark. This is very much in line with some of the traction that we had back in August as on our way down after that significant rise. If you remember the SEC lawsuit announcement, which took us all the way up to pretty much $1. And then, of course, the retracement occurred naturally, and we're back on track with what you'd argue is a kind of an average trend line of an upward movement. But taking that part aside, we are actually in line very nicely with some really interesting data points in history of the XRP token. So first and foremost, May 2022, this is actually quite interesting because this also matches up with something relating to Bitcoin that we announced today, where we've seen the $40,000 and $42,000 marks hit, and that wasn't seen since that time either. So it's kind of saying to me that the market is in a simultaneous fashion right now, and XRP is matching up with those previous resistance and support areas that we saw across that board between 2020 and 2022. Some people are jumping the gun to say that the bull run has already begun. There is definitely an argument for that. Is there a trap going on with some of the assets out there? That is also a possibility, of course, as well, which is why we always love that dollar cost averaging DCA mindset towards when we're accumulating these kind of tokens in the markets. But it is a fascinating read when you do look at those data points in the past, and particularly speaking that we had rejection or indeed support at the areas in July 2021 and here in February 2022, but then a rejection in May 2022 respectively. Of course, since then we've had this traction down at this sort of 30-cent mark for a long time, with some forms of bubble effects taking us up to these 60-cent marks quite frequently, but always being rejected. And it's the first time that we've seen at least some support at this current area. Whether it carries on remains to be seen. We could potentially have some traction downwards, which we've always got those buy orders here in my personal portfolio around these 54-cent marks and 45-cent marks as well. That's not to say it would definitely come back to those areas, but it's always something of interest to me as we're in this kind of like stabilizing format. And as I said, if you could imagine an invisible line here that's essentially showcasing an average trend line, it would argue that we could have a retracement or a retest of that 55-cent mark at least in these coming weeks, maybe not next month or so. So let's keep an eye out for that. But it is a really interesting testing time to see if we stabilize here and we've got enough confidence in the background, and also all these updates that come out, like this one, for example, relating to the Zodia platform on Standard Charter, that could keep the momentum in this format around this area and pull us back up to retest the higher areas as well. So from an accumulation perspective, we also look at the RSIs in the bottom left showing 51 and 53. This is quite respectable. I would like to see that coming down to at least around 45 before I take those positions, and that's where I potentially see that 55 cent mark coming in. And also the performance indicators on the right hand side are showing really good positivity for the year overall, of course, like many assets are. It's this week and this month that's kind of making me think that we will see slightly lower price points, as those have diminished quite nicely towards the 0 mark, and that could potentially drag itself into a red marker if we see a bit of a downfall over the next day or two, pulling itself to under that 60-cent mark once again. So we have the buy orders in. These are squares that we drew in the previous videos of the XRP that we did. I'm still holding strong that this could be an area of interest to accumulate at least a DCA opportunity. We did come close with 58. I didn't have my buy orders there. I had mine at 56. So I may think about putting that back out down to 58, at least for maybe some percentage of this area up towards that. So I'm just going to do that right now for the next video's reference and see if we can capture some of that. But I do think this area is of great interest before we see those bull runs next year and the year after as well. So guys, that's very much wrapping up XRP's positioning from my mindset, and just a bit of an update as well on some really key critical movements from them in regards to integrations like we just mentioned. But guys, thanks very much for watching this one. We'll see you in the next XRP update video. Take care. Bye bye.